Hi, everyone. So last time we left off with Ruth 4, verse 5, right? Where Boaz drops the other shoe as to the information about what will happen when the Mr. So-and-so, this kind of first up kinsman redeemer, purchases or acquires the field of Naomi or Elimelech, that he will also acquire Ruth, okay? And so verse 6, okay? And this is what happens when Mr. So-and-so finds out about that information, okay? Vayomer Hagoel, and the Redeemer, right, the first Redeemer, that is, he said, Lo ukal lig ali, okay, pen ashhit et nahalati, okay, and he said, the Goel said, oh, okay, I am unable to redeem them for myself, okay. And of course, I am unable is not quite right. He doesn't want to, not that he is unable, right? And of course, notice the repetition of the Ga'a language from before. Oh, if so, then I can't do it. Okay. And again, you do wonder whether, did Boaz kind of heighten it so that when the bottom drops out, right, did he kind of bait him, right? So that he would be, it seemed like originally he was going to get this great deal on this field, right, from this widow who's poor and have to sell, all of a sudden to find out, no, you're not really buying in that way. You're actually performing lover of marriage. And, did Boaz design it that way so that he would be disappointed and will therefore refuse, which is what he does here? Or did he design it, or did he kind of build it up that way so that the man would be more enticed, right? And it's not clear, okay? But there is some game that Boaz is playing. But he says, the Goel says, I'm unable to redeem for myself, right? And he gives you a reason why. And this might be, and it seems to reveal what, what was really at stake at lover of marriage, okay? Lest, okay, so I am unable to redeem for myself, right? Lest pen ash heat, and shahat, this is obviously in the Hifil, shahat means to lower, okay? It means to depreciate, right? Degrade almost, because then I will, lower or depreciate my own inheritance, okay? And you're like, okay, how so? Okay, is interesting, right? So, why would why? How does taking on acting as the kinsman redeemer depreciate somebody else's own inheritance, right? So, in the article that I gave you to read for that week, for this week. It talks about how in some ways this kind of institution of levirate marriage was good for the widow, right? Because it gave her a chance to bear a son, right, who can inherit, who can actually inherit the land and the resources of the husband, the dead husband, okay? However, it was not a great deal for the men, okay? Especially for the brother or the relative in this case, who will act as the kinsman redeemer, okay? And the reason is because if this kind of follows how the institution worked, right? If Naomi can't find someone to redeem, right? If nobody steps forward to do this, right? Then what will happen is that when Naomi dies, the plot of land will go back into the family as a whole, okay? And then that could be divided up and passed on to the men that are alive of that family, okay? So there's a loss of resources there, okay? Also, if you are the brother performing levirate marriage for your dead kin, notice how even if you have a son, which is the whole point of this whole thing, that son will not really be seen as your son, okay? So the men the brothers, right, really had some things to lose, right, which is why he refuses here. And this may explain why in Deuteronomy 25, when it describes levirate marriage, there was you can see the presence of something like social force, right? There's some social pressure, right? It's embarrassing not to do this, right? Because they're supposed to put the good of your entire family and this kind of system of the passing on of the nahala, right, above your own wealth and your own gain, right, about selfish, needs, right. And of course, what we're seeing here is that Mr. So-and-so, this guy, is refusing to do so. Okay, so once he realizes what's really at stake, he says, no, I can't do it. I'm unable to. I mean, whatever. Okay, so going onwards, Ga'al laha, okay, ata et ga'ulati, okay. Then he says, oh, well, you're here, right? Redeem for yourself, okay. The kind of inheritance, right? Or redeem for yourself, so redeem for yourself, literally my redemption. You have to make it pretty. Redeem for yourself my right of redemption. Okay, so he's saying, oh, well, then you should do it. Okay, so he's now trying to pass it to him. Again, you do wonder if that's exactly, Boaz has, this is intentional. Boaz has gotten him exactly to do what he wants him to do, right? Okay. Ki lo ukal lig ol, right? And he repeats it again because I'm unable to redeem. And again, this makes him sound even worse because we know that he is not unable to. He just doesn't want to. Why? Because he's being selfish, right? He doesn't want to depreciate. He doesn't want to do this good deed, right? And so again, you have this lovely contrast, or kind of spelling out of what Hesed looks like. Right, Hesed is the opposite of what this first redeemer does, right? Which is to fail to refuse to redeem, right? To fail to act in good faith or graciously, even against one's own self-interest, for the betterment of the entire community, for the betterment of your family. Okay. Okay. So going onwards. Okay. Vazot lafanim Israel, right? Okay, so notice again the breaking of the the verb chain, right? So this tells you that you need to emphasize this, or that this is, in this case, this is parenthetical, right? And so the writer is really turning aside and giving you extra information, okay? And this was Vazot lafanim Israel. Okay, it literally says, and this was before in Israel, right? Or so you have to again kind of play with it and make it pretty. And this was what was done previously in Israel. Okay, al ha ga'ula, concerning redemption, concerning levirate marriage. Okay, the Goel system basically, right? And over va'al ha tamura lakayim kol davar. Right, in order to, and the changing tomorrow, and concerning the changing, okay, or the substitution. Okay, and this is quite difficult to get it kind of nice, right? So this was what used to be, this was what happened in the past in Israel concerning levirate marriage and concerning substitutions, right? In order to confirm, it's the same word as to raise up, to certify, in order to confirm or certify all or everything about the matter, all of the matter, right? And this davar, shalaf, slung off a man, ish na'alo, his sandal, vanatan la re'ehu, right? This re'ehu language is repeated again, right? And he gave it to his friend. So again, there's good clues that they have no idea, that the writer has no idea how levirate marriage works, right? Because what he says in verse 7 is, and this is the kind of pretty up translation, right? And this is how it was done previously in Israel concerning a levirate marriage and substitution within levirate marriage, probably, right? In order to confirm all of the deed, right, or the matter, a man took off his sandal and gave it to his friend. Okay. And continuing on, vazot, and this was the ha-ta'udah be'Israel, okay? And this is how the testimony or of witnessing worked in Israel, okay? So even the language kind of tells you, like, the writer has no idea what's going on. And this is, they're like, this is kind of like what happened in the past, when he has no clue. Okay. So he knows that a sandal is involved. He knows that witnesses are involved. He knows that elders are involved. He just doesn't, he knows that, so he just doesn't know exactly why or how any of this works. Okay. Now, finally, Vayomer Hagoel la Boaz, Kaned laha Vayishlaf Naalo, right? And so with that little explanation on the side, oh, and the first redeemer, he said to Boaz, acquire for yourself, right? Kaneh lach, and he took off the handle, right? Which again is misinterpreted by the writers as kind of confirming his refusal. Okay, which is again in variance with Deuteronomy 25, where the sandal is really used probably as a shaming device, right? He takes off his sandal. We're told that the widow takes off his sandal, the one that refuses, and spits in his face, right? And this is a kind of shaming, probably a shaming device to say this guy refused to do this good deed of performing levirate marriage, and it's misremembered here. Okay. So okay, so notice how I have these words in purple, right? Which and notice the wordplay. So not all the word for sandal, right, which is repeated twice here, it interestingly has alliteration or wordplays with nahala, na'al, nahal. Okay, so they're putting a little bit of emphasis here, right? The word from which the word sandal comes, na'al, is also very interesting and significant, right? It's from nun ayin lamed, and nun ayin lamed, from which the word sandal means to shut up or close off. Okay, probably the reason why it means a sandal is it kind of shuts off. It's a shoe, right? I mean, it shuts off your feet. Okay, your feet. Okay. But notice how in this particular instance, right, you can do kind of some interesting readings with why the word sandal is mentioned, aside from the fact that it was used in levirate marriage ceremonies, and also why wordplays is kind of re-emphasized with the wordplay of nahal, right? Really what happens is that the person who takes off his shoe as a way to signify that he's not going to perform the act of levirate marriage, right, is kind of, what he's really saying is, I am going to shut off, close down this family. Okay, which is really how it's thought about in Deuteronomy, right? You do this so that the name of the dead will not be blotted out, so that family, that man's family, will not cease. Okay, in the kind of family tree kind of sense. And of course, it's interesting that a na'al will be used, or a na'al, na'al, the sandal, will be used when sandals mean to shut off or to close off, because of course what it's doing, what the person refusing to act as a kinsman is doing, is shutting off, right, the family of the dead man. Okay, and it also tells you what levirate marriage is supposed to do. It's supposed to reopen, right, almost revive a family of a man that looks like it's dead. Okay, the fact that a word placed with nahala, na'al, the sandal, word placed with nahala, again, emphasizes how the two are conjoined, right? This is about the inheritance that God has promised Israel. So it has kind of notions of covenant, right? What God promises to his promised people, right? And of course, land is a very important central thing in God's promises, right? And so you almost get the sense that by refusing levirate marriage, you're also not only shutting off the memory or the continuation of that particular family, but you're almost saying no to God's inheritance, i.e. God's promises to God's people. Okay, and that therefore it's quite a shameful thing to do. And again, in this text in particular, I think not only is it shameful, but a demonstration of what what not hesed is, right? So if it's that hesed is being defined in a variety of ways, right? And one of the ways that the writer demonstrates hesed is to demonstrate to you what is the opposite of hesed, right? The opposite of hesed is this man who is a kin refusing to act as kin, right? And of course, this man is not only contrasted to Boaz, right, who will act as kin, right, but certainly also contrasted to Ruth, right? Ruth, who is not kin, right, or a stranger, a foreigner, but who acts as kin to Naomi. acts as if better than, if not acts as a family member to Naomi, to her own detriment or to her own endangerment, right? And of course, she becomes kind of this ultimate representative of Hesed, right? So he's kind of contrasted to both Boaz and also, I think, almost mainly to Ruth, right? He is worse than a foreigner. He acts worse than a foreigner. Okay, so there's a little bit like, you know, the parable of the Good Samaritan feel to the text of Ruth, right? Who acted like a brother, right? Who acted like a neighbor, right? You almost see, almost, you know, who acted in a manner that is Hesed, right? It seems to be almost, you know, the book of Ruth seems to be kind of a narrative filling out of that question. What is Hesed? Who among these demonstrates Hesed? Okay. And in this case, it says Ruth, right? The foreigner, the outsider, the immigrant, you know, so it has this kind of lovely message, or the woman, the widow, okay, bringing in and elevating a lot of these groups that would, of course, traditionally here in this society and ancient society as well as modern society are seen as kind of on the outside, marginalized, right? And kind of lifting them up as really the demonstration of God's Hesed. Okay. So you can do a kind of interesting liberation reading of this as well. Okay, so with that, please watch the videos as you fill out your worksheets, and I will, you know, I'll see you for the next week's videos.